My name's Eric Johnson. I'm an attorney in Ada, Oklahoma, and I've always been interested in interviewing World War II veterans and hearing their stories. You know, you document in every medium possible the story of the greatest generation, and I believe that it's important so that future generations can see an oral history and can both visually see their presentation and then also listen to what they have to say. And it makes the story come alive versus just transcribing an interview on paper. And so if you have that ability to record their story, it just makes it available from that point forward. And it memorializes their sacrifice, memorializes the experiences that they had that really kind of made our country what it is today. And I just think it's very important. The Library of Congress is our nation's repository of history. That's what they're charged with. And so if we have the ability to participate in the Veterans History Project, I think that anybody can do that and should do that if they've got the opportunity to interview a veteran that participated in World War II and record their oral history. To have the opportunity to obtain that interview and not do that, I think is I think it's irredeemable. You know, once they pass, that story passes with them unless it's you know, preserved.
My name is Norman Bowen, but nobody knows who Norman Bowen was because I've been Doc most of my life. I had 4 friends and we was all going to save the war, had 18-year-olds, and so I joined the Navy. I was going to be a mechanic, and they didn't need them at the particular time, so I was a gunner. And that didn't work out too well because we didn't go anyplace. So I finally worked up in the bottom of the ship where the fire tails were.
I'm M.E. Carr, and my date of birth is October the 20th, 1926. I got out of high school in 1944, went out of high school right into the service. Went to Florida and went through the maritime training, came out as an ordinary seaman. They flew me to Panama Canal and they signed me on a ship, SS Mission San Carlos. It carried 110,000 barrels of oil. And from there we sailed to New Guinea. We left there on December the 23rd, 1944, going to New Guinea. And the ship, what we did, we refueled the Navy ships.
What's your date of birth?
5th, 27, 26.
And how old were you when you went into the service?
17.
And what year did you join the service?
1943.
Was that the Marines?
Marine Corps, yes, sir.
And where did you enter into the Marine Corps?
At Los Angeles, California. And I was in the 11th Marines. That's and on the 105 howitzers, you know.
Okay.
And that was an artillery regiment, you know.
And where were you born?
Philadelphia.
Pennsylvania?
Yeah.
And what year did you serve in our military?
I served World War II from 43 to 45. Well, I trained in the States and then I was shipped overseas to a bomb group and moved through missions.
What type of plane did you serve on?
B-24.
What's your date of birth, Mr. Bulge?
August 21st, 1920.
Were you drafted?
No,
So you
volunteered.
You volunteered, and what branch of service?
Marine Corps.
Do you have other brothers and sisters?
Had 2 brothers. One died young, and my older brother was killed in Iwo Jima.
I was born in Isabel, Kansas.
And how old were you, or how did you go about entering the service during World War II?
I was drafted the day I was 18 years old.
And where were you when you were drafted?
I was home from college,
And where were you going to college?
K-State,
And so were you drafted into what branch of service?
the Army.
Where did you end up serving? What theater of operations were you in?
Never got out.
Okay, so you...
They dropped a bomb.
How many ships did you serve on?
3.
And what were they?
They were all 3 were transports. We'd haul the Marines or soldiers or something from here to there to some island where we were going to try to run the Japanese off and take them up there and dump them out most of the time, and then come back and pick up some more.
Did you serve entirely in the Pacific Theater?
Yes.
We had watch to stand and that sort of thing, but 24 hours a day there was a refrigerator with knickknacks in it, coffee made all the time. You could go in at any time during the day or night and have a snack. The meals were good. You were served meals. You sat down at a table. Sometimes the water would be so rough that they'd wet bedspreads and put them on the table so our plate would stay in front of us. Now, I never did see any action whatsoever.
We were supposed to be going to Peleliu, but it changed, and we made a swim, and they went to an island called Pavuvu. We was there for a while, and then we started moving around, and we went to different islands. One of them was Guadalcanal. I don't remember that. That was December of '44, I guess it was. We had on an island. They still had Japs in some caves there, and we searched and get them out of there.
Guadalcanal was one of the early Marine victories in World War II.
1942.
What was it like being on Guadalcanal basically 2 years after the American victory? I'm sure there was still tanks on the beaches, and there was still some Japanese that hadn't surrendered, and
that was war.
A lot of wreckage of the battle.
They were still there, and they still had Japs there. Once in a while, the natives would bring a Jap up to us, and want to trade him for a can of corned beef and hash or something. They'd want to make a trade, and give us one of them Japanese prisoners.
You knew damn well that something was going on. Of course, the shells, when you started in, they were bombing the beach, and when you got close, they raised inland. Of course, the shells were going over you. So it was mass confusion, let's put it that way.
Dawn of an evening and at sunrise of a morning, everybody stood watch to see, and you watched for a periscope out there coming up. And we never did see one, but we were still watching for one, for we sure wanted to know if one was around.
What we were on was on our way to Okinawa.
When did you get to Okinawa?
We landed on April 1st, 1945. It happened to be Easter Sunday. And of course, back home here, we knew it as April Fool Day, but anyhow, that's where it was. And it took us 85 days there.
So you were in Okinawa for 85 days?
Yes, even a little longer, because we went up on the north end to set up camp, and then it came a typhoon. So we survived that, and then we got orders pretty quick to get ready to ship out again.
Did you ever see MacArthur?
Oh gosh, yes. MacArthur was boy, I tell you what, he was always stepped up in high tone all the time, and he's almost like a movie star to me.
What was it like transporting soldiers that you knew were going into battle?
It was crowded, and we would have, I think the least numbers we ever hauled was some Chinese people back from China to the United States, but when we was going the other way, it was crowded, and they just sat in the apartment in their base where they were sleeping and just sat there and played games and stuff, and then they had some exercises, but I didn't see much of that because I was down here running the ship.
And we got shipped home in 45, and we were going to get trained on that 29 and go over to the Far East, see? But we didn't make it.
because the war ended.
I wore my uniform home, and I had a sea bag, you know. There was my mother at the front door waiting on the screen door, you know. She was right there, and it makes me want to cry now.
They moved me to Letterman General Hospital in San Francisco. I refused to be a ward boy.
What does that mean, sir?
That means I'd have been a bedpan commando.
Okay. So what did you do in San Francisco?
They put me in the sergeant major's office because I was a pretty good typist.
Mm-hmm.
And I ended up as the commanding general's private secretary. We had a good time in San Francisco.
A young man gets 18 or 19 long in there, service would be good for him for a while, maybe a year or so, you know, learn him to straighten his shoulders up and carry himself well and discipline.
At that time, when I went in, we had the war to win, and you knew you was going to have to go, so you just went ahead and carried it out. And our sole, I guess, goal in life at that time wasn't a service. Let's get this darn thing over with and go home. We had a purpose. It was purpose to win. And if it was one more island to take, we'd take it and move on. And you knew what you were supposed to do, and that's what you was doing.
What I've found when I'm interviewing vets is that a lot of them, this is their first time they've spoken of their service since they came back. And what's interesting is it's almost more interesting what occurs off camera, because generally these individuals are elderly. They're over at age 90, and so most of them don't drive, so they're brought to these interviews by family members, sons or daughters or grandsons, granddaughters. And a lot of the stories that these individuals are telling to the camera or telling to me, it's the first time their family members have heard these stories. And so it's so interesting to watch what's occurring behind the camera, because you'll see family members cry. You'll see family members just with their jaws dropped in awe at the sacrifice that they never knew their father or grandfather had made. And the interview I did with Mr. Balch and the time that he was served as a Marine in the Pacific. Well, there were several times during that island hopping that he barely missed his brother, because his brother was serving in a different Marine unit. And there'd be 2 or 3 instances where he had got to an island when his brother had left just like a week earlier. And then, you know, he lost his brother in the Battle of Iwo Jima. Well, you know, that's hard for me as an interviewer to hear and digest, that type of loss. And then to be recounting that 70 years later. Can you imagine the time that has passed, but how fresh that memory is and it's still in their brain? It's very compelling. Well, they call them the greatest generation because it was that generation that made ultimate sacrifices. They sacrificed their bodies on the battlefield. Almost a greater story of that generation is not only the sacrifice that they experienced during World War II, but when they came back, they built our country, built our communities, built our business reputation in the world and made the United States the strongest nation in the world. And that started, really realistically before World War II, but the punctuation mark was put on the end of the sentence with our country's experiences in World War II.